Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified and Indian Express Explained. Now in this news we shall take up important news which appeared in the Hindu newspaper dated 5th of September 2021, which was the last Sunday, and the different news which has appeared in the explained section of Indian Express in the second week of September. So on this note, let's start our discussion from our prelims and mains perspective. Now let's take up this news which appeared in the Hindu newspaper on last Sunday. It says, why are breakthrough infections a concern? Why are people who are double vaccinated still getting the COVID-19 virus? So the question remains, does vaccine work against different variants of COVID-19? So in this news analysis, we need to understand about breakthrough infections, about the immunity of the human body, and also how vaccination protects us from these different viruses. Now we all know that the virus attacks the healthy cell of the human body, and by attacking these healthy cells, these viruses transfer their RNA into the human cells and thereby tells the human cells to replicate the same virus. And accordingly, the human cells, after being affected, makes copies of these different viruses in the human body. And this is how we get infected. Now because of this triggers an immune response from our bodies. And because of this immune response, our human body recognizes these foreign elements and overall in the process destroys them. Now similar activity is also done by the vaccine. Now the question is that what are breakthrough infections? So in this case, let's take the example of Covaxin. Suppose a person named A took the first dose on 1st of August 2021 and then he took the second dose on 2nd of September 2021. So after 16th of September, if this person is again infected by COVID-19, then we can say that it is a case of breakthrough infection because the person has been infected with COVID-19 after 14 days of his second shot of COVID vaccine. So this becomes an example for breakthrough infection. So in this backdrop, it's important to understand, number one, how our immunity functions, and number two, how does vaccination helps in remembering these foreign antibodies so that our human body can trigger an immune response even after days of vaccination. So from your prelims perspective, questions can be asked in the section of general science and technology, and in the mains, question can be expected under GS paper 3, especially with respect to science and technology. So on this note, let us understand both these important aspects of immunity and vaccination, and then we will try to understand the importance of breakthrough infections and whether breakthrough infections are really a cause of concern, and also which category of people are more susceptible to these breakthrough infections. Now the term immune means resistance to any toxin or to any disease, and in this context, immunity refers to overall ability of the host, that is human body, to fight any kind of disease causing organism. And this ability of the body to fight any kind of disease or any kind of foreign pathogens is referred as immunity. Now generally speaking, there are two different types of immunity. Number one is innate immunity and number two is acquired immunity. Now with respect to innate immunity, it's a very non-specific type of defense system of the body. Now the term non-specific type of defense system becomes important because it does not recognize any specific kind of a disease, and this type of immunity can be found since birth. Now this type of immunity, that is innate immunity, is accomplished by providing different type of barriers to the entry of foreign agents into our body. And these barriers are namely physical barriers, for example skin or mucus coating of epithelium lining of the respiratory system or urogenital tracts or gastrointestinal tracts. Physiological barriers in the form of acid in stomach and mouth, and also tears from eyes prevent microbial growth. The third aspect is cellular barriers such as white blood cells, lymphocytes, etc. And lastly is the cytokine barriers, which are secretion of interferons by virus infected cells so that the other cells do not get infected. So these are the different kind of innate immunity present in the human body since birth, and these are non-specific type of defense. That is, they are not specific to any particular kind of disease. Now let's talk about acquired immunity. So acquired immunity on the other hand is pathogen specific and it is triggered by memory. Now this means that our body, when it encounters the pathogen or the virus for the first time, produces a response which is called the primary response, and this primary response is very slow, and this primary response is of low intensity. Now the next time when the body encounters similar foreign bodies or similar viruses, then it recognizes these viruses and act accordingly. So subsequent encounter with the same pathogen or the same virus elicit a very highly intensified secondary or anamnestic response. So this highly intensified response is also referred as secondary response. And this is because the immune system of the body remembers the primary response or remembers the virus which attacked the body in the first instance. And this aspect of memory is carried on by T cells and B cells of lymphocytes, which are part of white blood cells. Now we have earlier discussed that white blood cells can be categorized as granulocytes and agranulocytes, and these agranulocytes can be further categorized as lymphocytes and monocytes. So these B cells and T cells are part of lymphocytes, whereas the different part of granulocytes are neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. So it is these B cells from the lymphocytes, which are part of white blood cells, which produces number of proteins in response to the foreign pathogen or in response to any virus entering our body. And these proteins produced by the B cells are referred as antibodies. Now regarding T cells, they themselves do not produce any antibodies. However, these T cells help the B cells to produce these antibodies. Now the T cells originate from bone marrow and then migrate to the thymus gland, and hence they are also referred as T cells. So this is how the memory aspect of the immunity system functions. Now with respect to structure of antibody molecule, each antibody molecule has 4 peptide chains. 2 of them are called light chains and 2 longer chains are called heavy chains. So these are the light chain of the antibody molecule, whereas this is the heavy chain of the antibody molecule. And because of this structure of 2 light chain and 2 heavy chain, it is also represented as H2L2. So after understanding how our immune response functions, the question remains as to how does the vaccine work. So even the vaccination system is based on the principle of memory, and we know that this aspect of memory is produced by B cells and T cells together, which are part of white blood cells. So what happened through these vaccination is that antigenic proteins of pathogen, that is virus or inactivated virus, is introduced in the human body, and these viruses helps in producing antibodies which fights against such virus or pathogen. And this is how the system of vaccination functions, as it mimics the virus and hence tells the body to prepare an immune response accordingly. Now another important aspect of vaccination is that it also generates these memory B cells and T cells, which recognizes these virus quickly on subsequent exposure. So suppose if a person is vaccinated, then the immune response of this vaccine will not only create these antibodies but will also generate these B cells and T cells as a secondary response system. And suppose if this person in future date gets infected, then the memory cells, that is B cell and T cell, will recognize the virus and accordingly prepare the specific antibody needed to destroy this particular virus. So this is how vaccination will help the person in case of subsequent exposure to same virus. Now vaccination also provides two types of immunity, namely active immunity and also passive immunity. So active immunity is created in the body when the host is injected with live or distorted virus or the disoriented form of virus. And then the body slowly generates an immune response based on the injected live or distorted virus. Now this process of active immunity through vaccination is a slow process as the body takes certain amount of time to prepare these antibodies against the virus which is injected into the body. However, in the case of passive immunity, ready-made antibodies are injected directly into the person who is unhealthy in order to protect against the foreign agent or the virus. So vaccination provides both kind of immunity, namely active immunity when the host is injected with live or distorted virus, and also when a person who is ill is directly injected the antibodies to fight the virus. So in the case of COVID-19 vaccine, so far we have seen the vaccines which creates active immunity as the host is injected with either live virus or distorted or disoriented virus. For example, in the case of Covaxin, whereas live virus is injected through Covishield. Now after understanding all these mechanisms, let us again come back to this aspect of breakthrough infection. Now as we have seen that breakthrough infection can be said to be such infection when this person gets the particular virus after 14 days of the second shot of COVID vaccine. So the question becomes that are vaccines not working? Now COVID vaccines helps the body to create these antibodies against the coronavirus. Now with respect to use of COVID vaccine, doctors and experts have suggested that the role of vaccine is in their drastic reduction of hospitalization, serious cases and also need for ventilators. However, complete protection against future COVID cases cannot be expected because efficacy of most of these COVID-19 vaccines ranges from 70 to 95%. So, no vaccine in the world provides complete protection or guarantees complete or 100% protection against COVID virus even if the person has been vaccinated with 2 doses. So, even if these persons are vaccinated with 2 shots and even after 14 days they get these COVID cases, then these T cells and B cells will help the person in recovering quickly, and there will also be less chances of serious cases and also reduction in chances of hospitalization or need for ventilator. Now as per the data provided in this article, it suggests that it is the frontline healthcare workers which are most susceptible to breakthrough cases of COVID-19 even though they have received complete vaccination, because they are the persons who are closest to persons infected with COVID-19. Now another group of people who are more susceptible to these breakthrough infection are people having weak immune system, which also includes people in the old age group. Now another set of people who are susceptible to this breakthrough infection are such people who are residing in such areas where transmission of the virus is very high. So these can be said to be the group of people who are more susceptible to breakthrough infection. Now as per the data collected so far, it appears that breakthrough infections are not translating into serious disease requiring hospitalization. So again we can see the importance of B cells and T cells coming into picture. Now the example of Kerala highlights that there have been 151 cases of mildly symptomatic patients with respect to breakthrough infection and 4 asymptomatic patients. Further studies from CMC Vellore and PGIMER Chandigarh suggest that the cases of breakthrough were between 1% to 10%, especially with respect to healthcare workers who were fully vaccinated. And of these percentage, only less than 5% of these healthcare workers needed hospitalization, and the best news was that no lives were lost. So clearly the impact of vaccination is there. It's only the aspect of efficacy. So again the importance of memory cells, that is B cells and T cells, comes into picture. So overall, we can say that even in cases of breakthrough infections, the intensity is not that high, as number of cases suggest that there have been very less cases of hospitalization. So in the backdrop of these breakthrough infections, we not only need to know how vaccination works, but also the fact that vaccination provides active immunity and also passive immunity. And COVID-19 vaccines create active immunity in the body. So this topic becomes important both from our prelims and mains point of view, as questions can be asked in the topic of general science in the prelims examination, and in the mains, question can be asked under GS paper 3, especially with respect to science and technology and the developments and their applications, and also with respect to development of new technology in India. So after discussing this particular news in detail, let's move on to our next topic of discussion. Now the next news to be discussed also appeared in the Hindu newspaper dated 5th September 2021. Now this news says peace deal inked to end Karbi unrest. Now this news is with respect to a tripartite agreement between central government, state government of Assam and 5 insurgent groups of Assam. These 5 insurgent groups are People's Democratic Council of Karbi Longri North Kachar Hills Liberation Front, Karbi People's Liberation Tigers, Kuki Liberation Front and United People's Liberation Army. So the whole objective of this tripartite agreement is to achieve 3 objectives for Northeast for the government. These 3 objectives includes to end all disputes in Northeast, to protect the culture and tradition of Northeast including its language, customs, etc. So in order to achieve these 3 major objectives, the central government, the state government of Assam and also 5 insurgent groups of Assam has entered into a tripartite agreement. So the major highlights or benefits with respect to this agreement is that these 5 insurgent groups have agreed to abjure violence and also to join the mainstream of the society. Further, these insurgent groups have also agreed to join the peaceful democratic process as established by law. And through this process, the government also aims to provide for the rehabilitation of these cadres of armed groups so that they can join the mainstream of the society. Now, for focused development of the Karbi Anglong region in Assam, the government has agreed to establish a Karbi Welfare Council, as it will focus on the development of Karbi people living outside the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council area. Now, from a pre-perspective, you need to know that the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council has been established under the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And it is in this perspective, the agreement also aims to provide greater autonomy to the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. And this greater autonomy is with respect to providing greater legislative powers, greater executive powers, more administrative and also financial powers to the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council established under the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And through this process of greater autonomy, it will also help to ensure better protection of identity, language and also culture of Karbi people living in Assam and also beyond the area of Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. Now another important aspect is that this greater autonomy to Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council has been agreed upon without affecting the territorial and administrative integrity of Government of Assam. And in order to ensure development of the region, the government has announced a financial package for the development of Karbi areas. And it is in this regard, a special development package of Rs 1,000 crores has been given by the Union government for overall development of the Karbi areas, so that the state government of Assam can undertake specific projects for the development of Karbi areas and its people. And with respect to financial help, the consolidated fund of the state will be augmented to supplement the resources of the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. So all these overall will help in achieving the Prime Minister's vision of insurgency-free, prosperous Northeast. And overall, it will help to bring not only peace and prosperity to the region, but this peace and prosperity will ultimately lead to all-round development of the Northeast region of India. So these can be said to be some of the important highlights with respect to this tripartite agreement reached between central government, state government of Assam and 5 insurgent groups of Assam. Now apart from the benefits, there can be also certain concerns with respect to this agreement. Now we all know that 5 militants of Karbi Anglong region have surrendered or have abjured violence, and they have decided not only to join the mainstream but also to follow the peaceful democratic process established by law. However, this will be easier said than done because transition from being insurgent to a stakeholder of democracy will be difficult to achieve, and hence there might be certain gap with respect to what is being promised and what will be implemented in the end. And this aspect also highlight another concerns, that is fear of militant past of these outfit cannot be wiped out easily, especially from the minds of local people residing in Karbi areas. Further, ensuring autonomy may not necessarily end the earlier demands of separate statehood, especially with respect to the 3 districts of Assam, namely Karbi Anglong, West Karbi Anglong, and even Dima Hasao. Another concern is that this agreement may lead to demand for more autonomy by other autonomous councils formed under the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So these can be said to be some of the concerns with respect to signing of this tripartite agreement. But overall, this particular agreement will help to end all disputes in the region. It will help to protect culture and traditions of the northeast region, especially in the Karbi Anglong region, and also it will lead to overall development of the northeast region, as the central government has also announced for financial help for the region. So this topic becomes important both from our prelims and mains point of view. In the mains, question can be asked under GS paper 3, especially with respect to the aspect of security, and also under GS paper 2, especially with respect to features of the Indian Constitution and also functions and responsibility of the union and states, and also under the aspect of devolution of power and finances up to local levels and challenges therein. So after this discussion, let's take up our next article. Now the next news to be discussed also appears in the Hindu newspaper on 5th of September 2021. Now this news titles Hycean Worlds. Now this word Hycean means hydrogen and ocean. So according to this news, it says that a study published in Astrophysical Journal identifies a new class of exoplanets, that is Hycean worlds. So if a question is asked in your prelims examination that recently the term Hycean worlds was in news, relates to which of the following? In such a situation, the correct answer would be new class of exoplanets, which might have a possibility to support life. Now, exoplanets are such planets or class of planets which are beyond our own solar system. Now, this Hycean world is basically composed of water-rich interiors with massive oceans underlying hydrogen-rich atmospheres, and hence the name Hycean world, meaning hydrogen and ocean. So, this new class of exoplanets suggests possibility of supporting microbial life and aquatic life, as the conditions may favor the same. This is because these worlds or these planets are about 2.6 times the size of the Earth and have temperatures of about 200 degrees Celsius. And the most important point is that they also have planet-wide oceans. So as per these data, it is quite possible that these Hycean worlds might support microbial underwater life, especially in the permanent area of night sites of such Hycean planets. So scientists believe that there are chances of finding traces of these biosignatures, which will be indicative of life process or indicative of either microbial life or aquative life in such Hycean worlds. So it is in this regard, this term Hycean world becomes important, and question can be asked in your prelims examination with respect to this new class of exoplanets, which supports the possibility of supporting microbial life and also life under water, that is aquatic life. And these Hycean worlds are composed of water-rich interiors along with massive oceans underlying hydrogen-rich atmospheres. So these can be said to be some of the important news which appeared in the Hindu newspaper last Sunday, which was not covered throughout the week. So this topic of Hycean world, meaning hydrogen and ocean, can be asked in your prelims examination under general science, and question can also be asked under GS paper 3 with respect to importance of finding these Hycean worlds which has the possibility to support life. And this can be asked with respect to science and technology and developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. So these were some of the important news which appeared in the last Sunday dated 5th of September 2021. So, after this discussion, let's take up some of the important news which appeared in the explained section of Indian Express in the second week of September 2021. Now, this news appeared in the explained section of Indian Express. It says account aggregators, new framework to access, share financial data. So, according to this news, 8 of India's major banks have come together and formed the account aggregator network that will enable customers to easily access and share their financial data. So in this regard, we need to know about this concept of account aggregator. So it says that an account aggregator is a non-banking financial company engaged in the business of providing under a contract the service of retrieving or collecting financial information pertaining to its customer. Now let's understand this definition of account aggregators through an example. Now suppose Mr. XYZ wants to take a loan, and for this purpose he has approached a particular bank. Now in order to avail the loan, Mr. XYZ must provide all necessary financial documents and details with respect to his various investments, such as investment in mutual funds, investment in equities, pension, if he has any of the fixed deposit, recurring deposits or any other savings, and also tax paid by Mr. XYZ. Now all these documents will be provided to the bank, and for this purpose Mr. XYZ might go to different institutions to collect these important documents. Now the bank will collect these different documents and overall try to find out his credit worthiness, and this will be done by finding out his CIBIL score. Now it is here where the concept of account aggregator comes into picture, as the account aggregator will act as an intermediary between the person and the bank, and with the authorization or consent of Mr. XYZ or any other person, such account aggregator will go to these different institutions to collect all his financial details and then provide these financial details to the concerned bank for availing a loan. So overall we see that there are certain benefits of this account aggregator who actually acts as an intermediary. However, the aspect of authorization and consent becomes important with respect to the customer. So the customer can authorize any account aggregator to collect all the financial details on their behalf and then transfer these financial details to the concerned financial institutions. So in this example, with Mr. XYZ's consent, the account aggregator can share all financial data with the bank concerned to avail the loan. So with respect to account aggregator, he becomes the intermediary between the person and the bank, and thereby he collects all the financial data of this Mr. XYZ or any other customer and provides such financial data to the concerned bank in order to avail loan or for any other purposes. So these account aggregators not only acts as an intermediary, but they're also regulated by RBI and needs to be registered as a NBFC or non-banking financial company. And hence even the functioning of account aggregators are regulated under the supervision of Reserve Bank of India. So according to Reserve Bank of India, account aggregator means a non-banking financial company which undertakes the business of an account aggregator for a fee or for some other consideration. An account aggregator are in the business of providing under a contract service of retrieving or collecting information of its customer pertaining to such financial assets as specified by the bank from time to time. So whatever the bank may need, the account aggregator with the consent of his customer can provide such financial details to the concerned bank. Further, the account aggregator also helps in consolidating, organizing and presenting such financial information to the customer or any other person as per the consent and instructions of the customer. So these are some of the important highlights with respect to account aggregator. Now you must be wondering that why would a customer share his financial data to an account aggregator, which is an NBFC? Now the important point here is that the account aggregator cannot see the financial data because the financial data which is transferred from one institution to another financial institution is encrypted end to end. So these account aggregators on behalf of different customers will merely collect these data from different financial institutions and then transfer to another financial institution. That is from one financial institution to other financial institution as asked by the customer. And in this process, the data which would be transferred would be encrypted by the sender and this data can only be decrypted by the recipient. Suppose if this particular financial institution A is sending the data, then such data would be encrypted, and only the financial institution B, which is receiving the data, can decrypt the data. So there is an end-to-end encryption of the data, and also use of technology like digital signature makes these financial documents much more secure than hassle of paperwork. So this is where the benefit of account aggregator comes into effect. So this step of 8 major banks joining the account aggregator network will have various benefits, as it will reduce the time and effort in giving loans by these banks, as the account aggregators will help in transferring these important financial details from one financial institution to another. Further, it will also help the bank to assess credit worthiness of the borrower more efficiently. Further, this particular network of 8 major banks will also help these banks to extend loans to different MSMEs without any collateral. Now, this would be possible as now banks can take a holistic picture with respect to the finances of MSMEs, with respect to previous taxes paid and also their total financial assets. So overall, it will help these banks to extend loans to these MSMEs even at times without any collateral and only based on their previous transactions. Now, all these steps will help in improving credit creation in the economy, and overall it will provide a safe and secure and also tamper-proof documentation because of the aspect of digitization. And this will be possible because transference of data from one financial institution to another financial institution would be encrypted end to end. So these can be said to be the benefits with respect to 8 banks joining the account aggregator network. Now this topic becomes important both from a prelims and mains perspective, and questions can be asked under the section of economy both under prelims and also under GS paper 3 with respect to Indian economy. So with this discussion, let's take up our next news article. Now the next news appearing in the explained section is with respect to solar storm. Now this news says that can a solar storm disrupt our internet connection? It says that the rapid development of technology which took place in the last 3 decades when the sun was in its period of low activity, and there are very limited studies on whether our current infrastructure can withstand a powerful solar storm. So this explained article highlights about the importance and also the impact of any solar activity, including solar flare and coronal mass ejection, or which is also termed as solar storm. Now different solar activities such as solar flare, coronal mass ejection, high-speed solar winds and solar energetic particles, all of these solar activities are driven by solar magnetic field. Now this picture from NASA highlights that sun is a magnetic variable star that fluctuates on time scales ranging from a fraction of a second to billion of years. So based on this understanding of solar magnetic field, let us understand about solar flare, coronal mass ejection and also about the importance of sunspots. So what are these sunspots? These are the cooler areas on the surface of the sun. Now the question arises is that why these areas are cooler? So these areas are cooler because these sunspots are formed at places where magnetic field are very strong, and this strong magnetic field prevents the heat from reaching to the surface of the sun. So basically this very strong magnetic field does not allow the heat to escape, and that's why these areas or sunspots are cooler as compared to the other areas on the surface of the sun. So sunspots are cooler because of very strong magnetic field. Now here you must understand that strong magnetic field on the surface of the sun leads to strong solar wind, and the strong magnetic field is caused by sun's plasma, which pushes the electrically charged particle towards the poles of the sun, that is towards the north pole and the south pole, and in the entire process the sun becomes a very giant magnet. Now regarding the constituents of sun, it primarily comprises of 91% hydrogen. So the hydrogen fuels the sun, 8.9% helium, which is formed because of thermonuclear fusion of hydrogen atoms, and 0.1% heavier elements, namely carbon, nitrogen, or now this thermonuclear fusion of 2 hydrogen atoms releases vast amount of energy in the form of radiation, electricity and solar wind. Now, another important aspect to be understood is regarding the solar flares. Now, it says that sudden explosion of energy caused by tangling, crossing, or reorganizing of magnetic fields near sunspots causes these solar flares. Now, with respect to coronal mass ejection, the outer solar atmosphere, that is the corona of the sun, is structured by strong magnetic fields. Now, where these fields are closed, which often happens above the sunspots or group of sunspots, then the confined solar atmosphere can suddenly and violently release bubbles of gas, that is plasma, along with magnetic field. And this sudden explosion of bubbles of gas, that is plasma, along with magnetic field is called coronal mass ejection. Now, this coronal mass ejection can contain billion tons of matter which is released at several million miles per hour in an explosion at the outer surface of the sun. So, this magnetic field which is released from the sun travels way towards the planet. And if Earth is placed in the direction of this particular magnetic field, then there can be certain harmful effect of these coronal mass ejection or solar storms. So if these coronal mass ejection, if it is aimed in the direction of the Earth, then it can interfere in power utility grids, which can also cause electricity shortages and power outages. Further, it can also disrupt internet, damage submarine cables, and also communication satellites. So we may witness a period where there is no communication or lack of communication because of disruption of internet and also disruption of communication satellites. Further, the strong solar magnetic field can also impact or interact with our Earth's magnetic field and can induce strong electric currents on the surface of the Earth. Now, this may be damaging not only to humans but also to man-made structures such as towers, antennas, etc. Further, there are also chances that people on Earth can also get electric shocks because of this interaction of Earth's magnetic field with that of Sun's magnetic field. So, in order to reduce the impact of coronal mass ejection, if such a CME is aimed at the Earth, then different space agencies of the world should come together and draw a particular shutdown strategy so that there is minimum loss because of the possible solar storm coming to Earth. So prior information about coronal mass ejection by these different space agencies will help in shutting down our satellites so that we can minimize the losses which will be possible because of interaction of these solar magnetic fields with that of the Earth. Thus, a proper shutdown strategy would be needed, and in this regard, different space agencies must come together so that they can issue a prior warning to all these nations of the world. Thus, this topic of coronal mass ejection becomes important both from your prelims and mains perspective, as question can be asked under the section of general science and in mains under GS paper 3. With this, let's take up our last article for discussion. Now let's take up our last article for discussion from the explained section. It says that what Chandrayaan-2 has sent. Now after the unsuccessful soft landing of Chandrayaan-2, this led to the crash landing and malfunctioning of Pragyan rover and Vikram lander. However, the orbiter of Chandrayaan-2 was still functioning. So it says that although the soft landing on the moon failed, the orbiter of Chandrayaan-2 has been doing its job. And 2 years on, ISRO has released the information which has been gathered from confirmation of presence of water molecule to data about solar flares. So in this regard, the orbiter of Chandrayaan-2 has gathered some important information about the moon. And these important information are with respect to water molecule, minor elements found on the surface of the moon, and also study about the sun. Now earlier, Chandrayaan-1 found hydroxyl radical but could not differentiate between hydroxyl radical or water molecule. However, the orbiter of Chandrayaan-2 has confirmed this aspect through imaging infrared spectrometer. Now, through this instrument, it has distinguished between hydroxyl radical and water molecule and effectively confirmed the presence of both, that is hydroxyl radical and water molecule. Further, the orbiter also found presence of water at all latitudes. Other important finds using the imaging infrared spectrometers are: it characterized hydration features in the North Polar region of the far side of the moon. Further, it also quantified this hydration within the crater of the moon. Now, the dual frequency synthetic aperture radar, which uses microwave, has reported unambiguous detection of water ice at the poles. And another good news is that through the use of microwave, it has been able to differentiate or distinguish between surface roughness and also from the water ice. So clearly water ice has been found at the poles of the moon with the help of dual frequency synthetic aperture radar using microwaves. Now another significant find released by ISRO is with respect to minor elements. So it has been found using large area soft X-ray spectrometer or CLASS. Now this class has almost mapped 95% of lunar surface area in X-rays. And the minor elements which have been found or detected are chromium and manganese, as finding these minor elements will help to find out the evolution of the magma on moon. Now another minor element which has been found on moon is sodium. And apart from the minor elements, even the major elements has been detected on the surface of the moon. These includes magnesium, aluminium, silicon, calcium, titanium, iron and other elements. And with the help of solar X-ray monitor, the orbiter has collected data on solar flares and microflares, as these data will help in finding about the heating of solar corona, that is the outer layer of the sun. So the question becomes that what are the implications of these data collected by Chandrayaan-2? So these data will not only help in improving our existing knowledge which we have with respect to Chandrayaan-1, but also we will know the moon better in terms of its surface, about its subsurface, and also about its exosphere. And all these knowledge about the moon also paves path for future endeavors with respect to Chandrayaan-3. Now these future endeavors can be with respect to mineralogical and volatile mapping of the lunar surface and subsurface properties and processes involved, quantifying water in its various forms across the surface of the moon, and also mapping the elements present on the moon. So all these will be key for future scope of work which may be given to Chandrayaan-3. So overall we can say that a key outcome from Chandrayaan-2 so far has been the exploration of permanently shadowed region as well as craters and boulders which is underneath the bedrock, that is the regolith, and also the loose deposit comprising the top surface which extends up to 3 to 4 meter in depth on the surface of the moon. Now all these understandings about the moon will help scientists on future landings, including paving way for further human missions on moon. Further, all these data collected by Chandrayaan-2 will also help other lunar missions like the Lunar Polar Exploration or LUPEX, which has been designed in collaboration of ISRO and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, that is JAXA. And this LUPEX mission is scheduled for launch in 2023 or 24. Then it will also help the NASA's Artemis mission, which plans to enable human landing on moon beginning 2024 and also to target sustainable lunar exploration by 2028. Further, these data will also help the Chinese lunar exploration program, as the Chinese lunar exploration program aims to establish a prototype of the International Lunar Research Station on the lunar south pole and also build a platform which supports large-scale scientific exploration of the area. So these data are really important and it will help in future endeavors which has already been planned by these different space agencies of the world. As all these information with respect to Chandrayaan-2 becomes important and questions can be asked in your upcoming prelims as well as mains examination. Now this topic with respect to Chandrayaan-2 and its findings can be asked under general science in prelims examination, and in the mains question can be asked with respect to GS paper 3, especially on the developments on science and technology and also achievement of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology and developing new technology. So with this discussion, let's take up the question for the day. Now based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for the day. It says consider the following statements. First, account aggregators are NBFCs and are regulated by Reserve Bank of India. Second, the consent of the customer for data transfer from one financial institution to other is not needed. Third, the financial data of the customer transferred with the help of account aggregators are end-to-end encrypted. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? Options are A, 1 and 2 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 1 and 3 only, and D, 1, 2 and 3. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, consider the following statements. First, government intends to establish 20 institutes of eminence, which include 10 from public and 10 from private institutes. Yes, this is correct. Second, all institutes under IOE tag, that is Institute of Eminence tag, would be granted funding of 1000 crores and autonomy to decide courses fee. Now, all institutes would not be granted this funding of 1000 crores. Only the public institutes will be granted the funding of 1000 crores. So in this, the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? So here the correct answer becomes A, that is 1 only. So with this, we come to an end to our discussion of explained section along with the newspaper of Sunday dated 5th of September 2021. Thank you for watching DNS and Explained.